Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is our first kind of public Google Hangout that we're doing for Alumni Affairs and our alumni community. My name is Keith Hannon with Alumni Affairs, and we hope to be bringing you a lot of these in the future. And our first guest to kick things off, we couldn't really ask for a bigger Cornell name now, or perhaps since Ezra Cornell himself. We have with us four-time national wrestling champion in 4 different weight classes, the first person to ever do that in NCAA wrestling history. Kyle Dake, class of 2013. Kyle, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
All right, Kyle. Well, I'm sure a lot of our alumni know what you've been up to. Obviously, the 4 national titles speak for themselves, but kind of take us on this adventure you've been on since that 4th title. You've been kind of a national sensation. You've been at the ESPYs in LA. You've been on the Dan Patrick Show. I remember seeing you there. So you've really kind of made your rounds. What's that been like?
It's been a whirlwind. I've been going everywhere. It's been really exciting, and I've had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of cool things and meet a lot of cool people. And just right after I won my national title, I was looking for a manager and agent to help me get sponsors and endorsements and handle my basically everything in my entire life, so I could just focus on training. Because right now the biggest thing for me is to go out and win the World Championships and hopefully win the Olympic title come 2016.
Great. I mean, when you were at Cornell, when you decided to go to Cornell, did you ever imagine you'd go from the Big Red of Ithaca to the Big Red Carpet of Hollywood?
Yeah, I mean, I'd hope so. I know when I first got to Cornell, I was hoping to be the best that ever wrestled, the best that ever stepped on the mat, and that was my goal. That's what I wanted to be. And if you don't have those types of goals, then you're kind of selling yourself short. You got to have those lofty goals, and then once you accomplish them, you feel really, really good about yourself. So that's kind of what I tried to do, and it kind of worked out for me. And then the fact that I got to go out to Hollywood was pretty awesome. Just meeting all of those great athletes, and even just the famous people out there, all the actors and things like that. It was just really a really unique experience, and hopefully I get to go back again in 2016.
Who was your favorite meetup while you were at the ESPYs? Who were you most excited to meet?
I was really excited to meet Adrian Peterson when I got to meet him. Yeah, that was pretty cool. His excellence is just on another level. What he did this past year, had he gotten those extra 9 yards, he would have been, the greatest running back of all time, and he's would have probably won the male athlete of the year instead of being nominated. But it was pretty cool to meet him, and then I got to meet Dwayne Wade too, which was also pretty cool.
That's a couple of sizable names in the sports community.
I was surprised that they weren't like everyone talks about how huge they are, but maybe Dwayne Wade was slouching a little bit, but Adrian Peterson wasn't that much taller than me.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm an avid, sadly, Buffalo Bills fan, and I can remember, it was time to stop going to training camp and asking for autographs when I started to look the offensive linemen eye to eye. So it starts to kind of ruin the fantasy.
That's right. You expect them to be giants, and when you see them and they're not, it's just like a little bit of a deflator.
Well, take us back. 4 years ago, you're a local product here. You were based in Lansing in high school. What was it that drew you to Cornell? What was the deciding factor in bringing you to the Hill?
I'd always been really close to my family, and my dad was my head coach, basically growing up, and then my grandpa was my coach when I was really young too. So, just being able to wrestle close to home was really important to me. And then the fact, you can't beat Cornell's education. What if it was kind of like not a fallback plan, but in a way it was, because I was always, worried about injuries and things like that. So having Cornell education as a fallback plan is pretty awesome. Plus, I'd been coming here for a really long time with the club program, and I'd known all the coaches really well. I've known Coach Cole since, I can remember. He's always been around, and I remember even going to Teagle Hall and watching those wrestling tournaments when they had to move all the gymnastics equipment to get in that gym. And then I even remember the first time we actually had a tournament or a dual meet, in Freeman Wrestling Center, and that was one of the coolest things that I'd been a part of.
So that's a great point. It's needless to say, I think Cornell's education is a pretty good safety net. I think most people would take. I think our alumni would certainly agree. So clearly, we've seen the Sports Illustrated video that was made about you. Clearly, your dedication to training and to wrestling is second to none. An intense love affair, and as you mentioned, you obviously you've had high goals and expectations from the very beginning. How are you able to balance that with the demand of obtaining an Ivy League degree? I know many of our alumni would say, geez, I barely got my degree, and I didn't play a sport, let alone play a sport so well that I won 4 national titles. So how did you maintain that balance of sports and academics?
It had to be my upbringing. I was always taught good time management, having to finish things before I moved on to the next. And when I got to school, I was really struggling to make weight, and that was one of the biggest things for me, because I wasn't, I had to work out, train, sleep, eat. Everything had to be scheduled. I didn't have a choice. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made weight and wouldn't have had the success I had on the wrestling mat. And it was so important for me to have success on the wrestling mat that I knew I had to keep everything else in line. And I just made sure I got all my work done. I kind of made a choice. I had to choose between 3 things: school, my sport, and then my social life. And you can only really do 2. I think I chose the right 2, school and sports.
Well, let's talk about your social life a little bit. As a social media junkie myself, I was very impressed to see that you have somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,000 Instagram followers, 27,000 Twitter followers. How have you balanced this social media demand that clearly you have right now?
It's tough to get to all the questions, and everyone wants to follow them back and things like that, and it's just tough that way. But if there's something crazy going on and someone asks me a question, usually I'll respond and just say, hey, this is what's going on. Here's the answer. But social media is one of them. It takes a couple minutes out of your day, and you go on, check it out, and that's it. But for my actual social life, the wrestling team is just a brotherhood. So we've always hanging out with each other, and we're on the same schedule, and we have the same goals in life, and we all want to be national champions, and that's what we need at the highest level. So that's what we're dealing with, and that's how we approach our lives. So everyone has the same goals, and everyone's going to take the same steps to get those goals, and that's keeping your school life, your family, everything in line.
So we have I'll step away from my itinerary right now, because we have a question from the viewing audience. This is from the chat name that this individual went with is GM6. We could speculate as to what the acronym means, but that's what they went with. And he wants to know, can you tell us your 3 proudest moments in this sport thus far?
Obviously winning 4 national titles at 4 different weights, you could split those up into 4, you could couple them together, but after winning my 4th title was an amazing moment. I got to go, I won it, got to see my coaches, then I got to go, see my family, and everyone was just so happy, and that was one of the coolest things, that I've experienced in the sport. Another one would be my freshman year, my very first home dual meet. I was a true freshman. I never took a red shirt, and I was wrestling a red shirt senior from Maryland, and he was ranked 4th in the country at the time. I was not ranked, and it was a huge matchup for me, and I really had to prove myself. And I went out, and I was losing the match going into the 3rd period, and I came back and had a sweet body slam and actually won the match. And I wasn't expected to, but the crowd went crazy. They went so loud that the camera broke. It was a pretty amazing moment, and you know, number three, it's hard to say. There's been so many great moments. Um, probably my sophomore year, proving to everyone that my freshman year wasn't a fluke. Um, you know, going up a weight class and wrestling arguably one of the best wrestlers in the country, uh, being in his weight class and winning his weight class was a very proud moment. But it was just cool to be able to prove myself once again.
That brings up an interesting question. Was hopping weight classes part of the plan right from the beginning? Is that something you knew you wanted to do?
My freshman year, I came in. I wasn't that big. I was only weighing. I wasn't. It was easy for me to make 141, and as the year started going, I just started getting bigger. I never really lifted weights religiously. I'd been working out. I had a good trainer down in Binghamton, and I got some of my good strength there. But coming into the year, I wasn't lifting on a consistent basis. Week in and week out. And then when I started doing that, and coupled with the fact that I was cutting weight, I kind of just blew up a little bit. And I was really young, and I wanted to keep getting. I was hungry, and I was growing, and that's basically what it was. So until going into my senior year was probably the only time I really had a choice to go up a weight class. My junior year would have been really tough for me to make 149, but going up my senior year, I could have made 157 pretty easily. But 4 weight classes is pretty cool. Plus, being able to go up and beat the returning Hodge Trophy winner is definitely pretty cool.
Yeah, very impressive feat there as well. As an article I read about you recently said, to pull off this 4th national title, you had to beat the absolute best, and you did. And it sounds like you put the freshman 15 to better use than I did. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that freshman 15 is a little bit different, but
Yeah.
I definitely covered it. I'll tell you that.
All right. Well, we have some more questions coming in, so I want to jump over to our audience. And Michaela wants to know, what was it that made you get into wrestling in the first place?
It was definitely a family affair. My grandpa, wrestled and coached in Ohio and Ball State and out in Cleveland area, and then my dad, was a state champion, NCAA D1 All-American, and I loved being in the room. My dad would bring me into the wrestling room, and I would just run around and go nuts in there, and I had a great time. And after that, I just fell in love with it, and I just kept coming back for more. And as I started getting better, I started winning, and everyone loves to win, and that was fun for me. So, it wasn't the fact I wasn't able to wrestle and win wrestle every single day, competition-wise, but going to practice and seeing all my friends and being able to mess around, run around, get some of that energy out was really fun for me. I just had a great time doing it, and the most important thing for me and what I tell all the youngsters out there is that you got to keep having fun.
All right. Well, I mean, that must have been quite a moment for your dad, considering his wrestling history, to see you accomplish what you did accomplish. I mean, he sounds like he set a pretty high bar, and you kind of smashed it.
Yeah, each year it was my freshman year. I was going into my freshman year in high school. I wanted to be a state champ, and my dad had won state. So I was like, okay, all I got to do is beat my dad. I gotta get one state title, and unfortunately, my freshman year I wasn't able to get it done. But my sophomore year I tied him, so that was great. And then my junior year couldn't get it done, missed it by a fraction, and then my senior year I finally got it. So that was pretty cool. And then my freshman year in college, I was like, okay, I'm going to win it. I'm going to blow my dad out right now. I'm not going to let him hang around. And, I went out and won a national title, so that was pretty cool.
Well, I think it's safe to say you earned dinner table bragging rights with this collegiate career alone. Let's get to another question here from Aaron Dunn, who's asking, did you wrestle at any clubs when you were younger?
Yeah, I wrestled at the Shamrock Wrestling Club. They were based in Cornell for a little bit, and then they're their home base was in Binghamton, and I spent a lot of time down there. Spent a lot of miles on the road. I could drive down to Binghamton with my eyes closed if I had to. That's how many times I've been down there. But when I got a little bit older, I wrestled the Finger Lakes Wrestling Club, which is the club here at Cornell. It's the official club that all of the local guys come and wrestle at now. This is the new Shamrock, basically. It's a great club, and if you are in the New York area, Aaron, you gotta come down and come to Ithaca and wrestle with us, because not many places are you going to be able to have partners that are excellent at your age, but also have partners who are the best in the country, just period, in college. So fortunately for me, I was able to come in and wrestle guys like Corey Manson, Mike Gray, and a ton of great college guys who would just beat me up day in and day out, and that was good for me, and fortunately it worked out.
So it sounds like, Shane, you needed come over to the Shamrock Club and take your lumps, and maybe you can have a career like Kyle.
Yeah, you got to come over to Finger Lakes.
And so let's jump over to another question. This is from Kara Cash. Hey, Kyle Dake, I'm always scared to shoot on guys for some reason. How do I overcome that?
Definitely just keep drilling. You got to practice those shots. You got to practice everything perfectly. Don't just go through the motions when you're in practice. You got to be adamant about hitting everything perfect and really focusing on finishing your shots. That's the most important thing. If you can get to the leg, you got to be able to finish your shots. It doesn't matter how you get there. Just get there and work on your finishes.
Great. Take that back to the practice, Matt Kara. Oak Seng Chan wants to know, what are your all-time favorite shots to work, and what motivates you to continue to dominate now that you're out of college?
I'm a big fan of just snap downs and sweep singles. Those are the most dominant takedowns in the world right now. But also, I've been hitting a lot of duck unders lately. But those are basically the three main takedowns that I like to work on. What motivates me is I want to win that Olympic gold. That's my ultimate goal. That's what I've been driving for since I was a little kid, and that's what I'm going to get. That's my plan, and I want to do that for myself. I want to prove it to myself that I can do it, and the only way to do that is to get in every single day and push yourself and get better.
So that's a good segue into a topic. We have a few more questions coming in that we'll definitely get to, but I want to talk to you about wrestling in the Olympics. I know you're very active in promoting wrestling and keeping it as an Olympic sport. Talk to us a little bit about the recent decision by the IOC and what you're doing to combat that.
The decision by the IOC came out of nowhere, and it was in February. And I was in the midst of a college season, and we heard that. And I woke up. The way I found out was through Twitter. I woke up, checked my Twitter, before I jumped in the shower, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they dropped wrestling!" And I just couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke. So I just threw my phone away and got in the shower, came back, and just kept seeing it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a real thing." And then later I got a phone call telling me that they dropped it. I was like, "Oh wow, that is ridiculous." And ever since then, we've pulled together as a wrestling community, and we're really trying to, preserve the sport, really. And the best way we can help, you guys can help us, is go to keepolympicwrestling.com, and that's, the biggest thing. We need a lot of support. Just talking about it. Everyone just, say, "Oh, hey, have you heard about wrestling?" Just tell our story. We're one of the oldest sports in the world. That and track and field. And the fact that they dropped us just doesn't seem right.
What do you think?
Hopefully,
what do you think was the motivation behind that decision?
We just took the fact that we were in the Olympics in our history for granted, and we weren't coming up with the money. We weren't coming up with the same numbers apparently, and they decided to drop us. It really, if it's based on those two things, it's a mystery to me. I think that of course I'm biased, but wrestling is one of the greatest sports in the world, and you can't beat it because you don't need anything to wrestle. All you have to do is have an open space, and that's it. You don't need shoes. You don't need all of these things to go and wrestle. You have those kids, out in Azerbaijan or in Russia who don't have anything, can barely get 2 meals on the table, and what keeps them from joining whatever the mafia, the gang, whatever it is wrestling, and that's how they have stability in their life. It's just so many countries and so many people use wrestling as stability, and the fact that they dropped us is really going to hurt us if that decision is upheld. But we have so many great people working on it right now that I don't think I think we're going to be back for 2020.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem right. I mean, when you consider the history of the Olympic Games, the origins all the way back to the Greeks and Romans and et cetera. I mean, wrestling's always been a part of it. So for people watching on Facebook, on our Facebook page, on the tab, you'll see the banner for Keep Olympic Wrestling on the right-hand side of your screen. That's an active link. You can click that image and it will take you there. But please help support Kyle and other wrestlers who continue to work hard at a sport that is just all about the love of the sport itself. And so visit keepolympicwrestling.com. All right, let's jump over to another question. This is from D. Renzi, who says, "Hey, Kyle, rule changes occur in all sports. In the past few years, there have been some rule changes in folk-style wrestling alone. Examples starting at different weight classes in high school, squeal rule, etc. Were any of these changes difficult in which to adjust? Which benefited the sport the most?"
There are rule changes, but if you think about it, the rules in general are still the same. You got to go out, you got to take your opponent down, and you got to establish that control. Starting at different weight classes doesn't bother me at all, just because I've been always going up weight classes, and most people try to leave before the heavyweights get up there, and that's not really fair to them because they have a lot to offer, and there are some very talented heavyweights out there. So the fact that they're starting at different weight classes doesn't bother me. The squeal rule, when you get to the higher levels, you're not going to have to worry about that. Plus, it is what it is. If people are hurt, then they're actually hurt. But if they're not, then that should give you confidence. You should be like, all right, this guy doesn't want to wrestle me. I just got to go out and keep plugging away.
Slowman95 wants to know, how close are you and David Taylor?
When we were growing up, we were real close. We would definitely hang out in the summers a little bit. I'd go to his house for a couple days, and he'd come to my house for a couple days when we were able to. But when we got to college, it's just hard to stay in touch because we're both so focused. I know, I don't have a lot of time to, really reach out even to my high school friends who are away. Let alone someone that I, wasn't one of my best friends coming into college. But we definitely respect each other, and every time we see each other, we'll definitely chat it up. But we're good friends.
All right. Bleed Delcy Red wants to know, who was the toughest challenge in college?
Definitely David Taylor. He's one of the greatest wrestlers of our era. He, the way he goes out and scores points is pretty impressive. Some people think his way of wrestling is a little more fun to watch than my style of wrestling, but that's just a matter of opinion. But going in and having to wrestle him 3 times in a year was a challenge. Each time, everyone thought that, oh, is David Taylor going to get in this time? Da, da, da. And I didn't think of it that way. I wasn't thinking, am I going to lose this match or am I going to win this match? It's, I was just trying to get better. And he really pushed me to get better because I knew that he was going to bring his A game every time we wrestled, and I knew I had to bring mine.
Great. And Shortney8 wants to know, what advice would you give to kids who decide to start wrestling?
Just make sure that you're having a lot of fun with it. Get in, test out the room. It's fun to learn new things. I'm learning new things every single day. And that's what's great about the sport, because there's not going to be a time where you know everything. there's going to be different ways to score your attacks, and there's going to be more dominant ways than some others, but there's always something new that you can learn, and that's really exciting to me. But just go out and have fun, wrestle guys that you can hang with, and challenge yourself a little bit too.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that. When you were young and just getting into wrestling or early on in your career, what was the best piece of advice that you received?
The absolute best piece of advice was, my outlook on, or my view on pressure. Coach Cole brought me into his office, and we were talking a little bit, and he's like, just tell, what is pressure physically in tangible terms? Tell me what pressure is. And I sat there and I couldn't think of anything. I was just, well, butterflies, da da da. And he's like, exactly, pressure is nothing. There's nothing that is. It's not like a 50-pound backpack that you put on and you have to wear. There's nothing physical about it. You just got to go out and do what you know how to do, and wrestle the way you know how to wrestle. And those butterflies in your stomach, that's physiological, and that's what your body's telling you to do when you're ready to go into battle. Really, that adrenaline pump is important. And now if I don't have those butterflies in my stomach, I'm like, what's going on? There must be something wrong. But just change your outlook on how you view nervousness or pressure or anything like that, and you'll be fine.
That goes great with a couple people have asked this question. I'll give credit to Kara Cash. She wants to know, how did you get mentally prepared before matches?
I would just go through each and every match in my head, just like focusing on my techniques and trying to hit everything perfect and make everything as smooth as I could. Just going through the matches and always coming out with a tech fall. That was one of my things. I would always win by tech fall in that 7 minutes. I would just go through it in my head. That was one way I got through most of my workouts my freshman year. I would just keep wrestling matches on the treadmill. I'd be running at a steady pace, and I just had to focus on something other than the mirror in front of me. I had to focus on, how I could get better. And one way you can really excel and get better is by mentally training and staying positive.
Yeah, and I'll follow it up with a question from Jared Enderton, who along those lines wants to know, he says, you seem to have unbreakable confidence. Since entering college, have you had to work on any aspects of your mental game?
Yeah, actually, I was pretty good at cutting weight, and sometimes, a couple of times I let it get to me. It was my freshman and sophomore year. I was cutting a lot of weight, and I let it get to me. I was like, oh man, I'm so tired from that cut, and I kind of talked myself into not wrestling the best I could, which was really unfortunate, because had I had a solid mindset, going in every single match, I think I would have done a lot better. But there's definitely always something you can work on. You always got to have those positive thoughts. When you have a negative thought, you gotta stamp it out with 10 positive ones, and they have to be sincere. You have to truly believe it. And that was one thing I really learned was, I always truly believed it, but now it's like 100% belief that I'm going to go out and do my job.
Great. Al Rossetti wants to know, what was your recruitment process like? Who else wanted you?
The very first day, I got a couple phone calls. I was coming back from a long trip in Istanbul. I was wrestling in the Junior World Championships in Greco in 2007, and I was coming back and got a few phone calls, and it was a pretty cool process, just because I was able to meet some new people. Tom Ryan called me from Ohio State. Obviously, Coach Cole, Damian Hahn called me, and then a couple of guys from Northwestern and Binghamton, and those were the Northwestern and Binghamton were the only other two schools that I was really looking at. And then I only took a visit to Binghamton. It was close to me, and it was pretty cool. But when I got there, it just wasn't for me. I got along with the guys a little bit, but it wasn't what I was looking for. Plus you can't beat Cornell's facilities. You can't beat the coaching staff and the training partners as well. So, after I actually sat down and thought about it, Cornell was a pretty easy choice.
Well, I grew up in Binghamton, spent 21 years of my life there, so you don't have to sell me on the need to move on sometimes. All right, I think we're going to take one last question here, and this should be kind of a softball question. Alan wants to know, what was your favorite food to munch on after weigh-ins?
It changed every year. I weighed in so many times my freshman year. I loved blueberry bagels with cream cheese. And then after nationals, I didn't want to touch another blueberry bagel again. So you kind of just get sick of it. And then I moved down to turkey sandwiches, ham sandwiches, and then peanut butter and jellies too. So, each year I kind of had a different thing that I loved. Right after weigh-ins, matched up with my favorite color, Gatorade.
I think our alumni frequently like to debate, best food places on campus. Was there one place in either Ithaca or on campus that was kind of your go-to place to splurge a little bit?
Yeah, on campus was Trillium, 100%. It was just cool to go there. That was basically where all the athletes went and hung out in between classes. If you had a couple-hour break, you could just go there and do the crossword, do the Sudoku, and hang out, get some good food. Off campus, that's a tough one. I've been going to the Boatyard for a really long time, and I love it there. But Joe's Restaurant, you gotta love their salad dressing. Their salad dressing is to die for. But there's definitely a couple more places that I would frequent, but those two are probably the most visited by Kyle Dake and company.
Not too many late night runs to the hot truck.
I was always sleeping. I didn't have very many runs. My freshman year, I was at Bare Necessities pretty much every single day. I love going there. The big red bucks, I'll kill you. You just think it's free money. You don't have to pull out the green bills. You'd be like, hey, here's $20. You just have to swipe a card and that's it. And that's my freshman year. That was something I liked.
All right. Well, Kyle, I want to close it out with just one last question. Actually, what will you miss most about just student life at Cornell?
I'm gonna miss the team camaraderie. Just being there, going through battle every single day with my teammates is one of the during it kind of stinks, but afterwards, that's one of the most gratifying things that you can have. And I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna be miss meeting new people in class and stuff, and just talking to different people, seeing where they came from, see where they're going. I've met some really incredible people my 4 years here at Cornell.
Great. Well, I'll end on a positive note. Even more positive note here is we have a comment from Giant Cuse 1965 who says, "My boys think you're the best. Everyone says my 12-year-old looks just like you." And he says, "Thank you for being such a great role model."
I'm glad I can fulfill that role.
Do you feel like a role model?
I feel like a lot of kids look up to me, and I have to be that perfect kid, that role model. I got to make sure that I do everything right, and that kids want to grow up and be like me and live the lifestyle that I live, because if they do that, no matter what they choose in life, whether it's business or sports or whatever, engineering, whatever, they're gonna have a great attitude going into it, and they're gonna succeed.
Well, I know in this half-hour discussion you've certainly sold me. I think you're a worthy role model. I think most of our alumni community are extremely proud to have you in the Big Red family. You've represented everyone extraordinarily well, and we wish you the best of luck. We hope you'll continue to be a success at the Olympic level, and we'll be campaigning for the wrestling to stay in the Olympics by visiting keepolympicwrestling.com. So thank you all for joining us. We appreciate all the great questions that came in. If we didn't get to your question, we apologize. Kyle's a very popular individual, as you can see by his social media accounts, as we mentioned earlier. But Kyle, thank you very much for joining us. We know you're busy and you're stretched pretty thin these days, so thanks so much for giving time to the alumni community.
Thanks for having me. Thanks to all the fans for coming on, and go Big Red.
All right, thanks, Kyle. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be back on the air soon with another Alumni Affairs hangout. Thanks very much.
See ya.